I'm making a tiny apocalypse survivors camp. I make miniatures of all things imaginary, and my absolute favorite is the apocalypse. I tried 5 new techniques, they did not all go to plan.
I need help.
Let's get building. I'm using insulation foam as a foundation for this piece, as it's easily sculptable to the rock scenery that I'm going for. We're sticking them together with a bit of hot glue. And I'm just adding the building blocks as I go. As always, cleanup is crazy and messy. Then we just need to carve out where the stream is going. New thing for me is using plaster of Paris, 2:1 plaster to water ratio. Then we can use some grey acrylic for the rock colour. Now I can spread it over the scene to merge it all together. I'm leaving it for 45 minutes to fully dry. This is my first time painting miniature people. I bought a bunch of cheap characters from Amazon, but they are all different sizes. Such tiny features and trying to go for the right apocalyptic colours. Okay, these are terrifying, just don't look at them closely. We need some brown and black washes for the rocks. I like having a range of colours for this to make it look more interesting. I'm making some polymer clay trouts to be in the river. They have to be so tiny at this scale, which is around 1/75. And I'm giving them a teeny paint and chalk to make them the right colours to be seen. Now the rock's dry, we can give it a little dry brush of white. For the riverbed, I'm adding some PVA glue to attach rocks and silt. Then using some watered down PVA and dripping that over so everything sticks. I found this moss on a bus stop during a walk, and I'm pulling some pieces off to use as underwater greenery. Adding a little trout. Hindsight Kendra here, I didn't realise epoxy resin binds to foam since this was my first time using epoxy resin. Second mistake was using Mod Podge, which is a water sealant, and not waiting for it to dry. This is me using masking tape for what I find out later has absolutely no effect. More wet Mod Podge. I'm making up my first batch of epoxy resin and colouring it the way I want, to which at least the colour I was pleased with. And resin immediately leaked out.
Well, I need help.
Then I tried UV resin. Then I tried hot glue. I was not patient enough to wait to see what happened, so I added more epoxy resin and my little trouts. And as you can see, resin absolutely everywhere. So hey, why not more resin? There is a lot of resin mess, but I angled it in a way that eventually it leaked out slow enough that some of it hardened. It's been about a day and a half now. I really want to see how this is going. Got stuff absolutely everywhere. Ah, yeah. Julie noted that resin hardens hard, and it hurts if you stab yourself with it. This is all hardened resin. Well, you might be watching this thinking, for God's sake, don't sand it because it'll do this. However, I don't know what that is, so watch me sand this and let's see how it goes. I know you can get stuff to make this look a bit more so you can actually see what's inside of it. I'm gonna put this in here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try this alcohol wipe, see if that does anything at all. Looks like the answer to that is no. I need like oil. We're gonna use feed and wax, which is 100% not designed for this, and it's probably gonna make it look really weird, but I want it. I want it to be shiny, but it kind of works. And you know those trout that I put in, you can forget about it because they don't exist anymore. Put this everywhere that I want the sand. This is the beach where we're gonna have the people standing on, so this is gonna need plenty of sand, and then we also want it down this little pathway. You get your PVA and water and then layer it over the top of that stuff. That's too much. This is a typical British beach in that it's always soaking. And then I'm just gonna add a few of these little guys. A couple of them up here too. What I want to do next is make a tree for here. I want to use some actual like twigs. Got a saw. I wish I had a clamp, but I don't. We now have the trunk. I'm just gonna mark out with this where I want the main kind of ends to be. I'm gonna add some spray adhesive. We've sprayed the adhesive glue on top of this part. Now we just need to add a little bit of flock. We're going to add a little bit of lighter flock on top of it, and then it's actually done and we can add it to our thing. We can add it to this. The last thing we want to do to the base is just to add a little bit of greenery. We're just using a little bit of watered down PVA glue, round. I just want to add bits of grass. And to clear up, I just have this big brush. I've added some of these little tufts. I thought I recorded me putting these on. However, it turns out that I hadn't pressed record. So the next thing that I need to do are make the stairs. Some stairs, and then it has a little bit of a platform, and then some more stairs until it gets down to the bottom. First of all, mark out whereabouts each part is. So let's get started with putting the exterior frames, and then we can move on to the rest of it. I'm gonna paint these pieces silver. These are gonna be the metal bits. Whilst we let those dry, we can move on to the bits that are just all supposed to be wooden. So we're gonna start attaching as many of these railings as we can. And then I'm gonna add in this little platform. So I've actually had a thought since I started making this staircase. So I've made this bit down here a bit too sloped to be able to have the kind of platforms that I was thinking of. There can be a ladder that goes all the way down here. We're now attaching all these metallic stairs. I decided to paint the rock a little bit more so it's darker in areas that make a bit more sense. Now what I'm gonna do is add a railing. These are pretty precarious steps. Whee! Now what I want to do is make this wooden bit a bit darker. We're gonna make some of the more nitty-gritty details. Camping bags and the camping mats and sleeping bags and stuff like that. This is the sleeping bag, and I imagine that they kind of roll it up. Little bag with a little pocket, and then they could just attach it on top like this. Cut out a little piece of fabric here. This is just from an old wall hanging that I had, and then this is just from an old jumper. And then I've also got a needle and thread, so I'm just gonna roll it up. So we've made a little poster board, a little bit wonky, but cut out a couple pieces of paper, then just squiggle. So it looks like someone's written on it before. We've added a little bit of Mod Podge to posters, and then we can just let that dry. So we're finishing everything off by making all the small little details. We've made the little log piece. This here is going to be a little blanket that they've thrown over. We've made a bundle of twigs. We want to make an axe so that they can break apart some wood, and we want to make a fishing rod. I want to add 2 little poles so that we can attach a tarp. I'm using this thread as a bit to stick to the rod and then use it as the bit going into the water. We're now gonna add a tarp. This is made from mint cream. We've added some little pieces here to make the tarp a little less noticeable, so some rocks would have tumbled down at some point. But for the actual fire, just gonna add some hot glue. We have this tiny blob of white here, so the way that we're gonna change that is just to paint it. Just paint it a little bit. We have finished making all of our little pieces. All that there's left to do is to get all of our things, glue them on, and have one final look.